let's talk about, DC finally got their act together. DC and Warner Brothers.
Week.
After years of speculation, we finally have ourselves the DC movie slate. And holy crap balls, what a slate it is.
It's great.
It's kicking off with Batman versus Superman. That we knew. But Justice League getting broken into 2 movies.
Part 1 and 2.
Part 1 and 2. And also, we have solo movies. Here, let me just rattle them off real quick.
Break it into 2 movies when it was always going to be 2 movies.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's
they
weird.
could break it into 3 at the rate, Warner Brothers.
The benefit of calling it Part 1 and 2 is that you don't have to have a self-contained story. You don't have to have a beginning, middle, and end that makes sense as a cohesive whole.
It smells like a cliffhanger.
It can go ...
Yeah.
So it's going to be Ellipses the movie.
It can.
So let me rattle off the DC slate here, and then I'm going to pose a question to the panel. Okay. We have Batman, Superman, 2016, Suicide Squad, 2016, Wonder Woman starring Gal Gadot, 2017, Justice League Part 1, Affleck, Cavill, Amy Adams, oddly enough, mentioned in the press release,
Isn't that interesting?
2017. Look, you're paying for Amy Adams. You're going to have to
Use
make
her
sure
somehow.
Lois Lane's going to have to do some work, is what I'm saying. Like, she's basically going to be just like the getting all her scoops from the Super Friends at this point.
Super Friends.
The Flash, starring Ezra Miller, not Grant Gustin. You guys did a whole conversation about this, but we will talk about it a little bit more. That's coming in 2018. Aquaman, yes, Jason Momoa is Aquaman, getting his own movie, 2018. Eat your heart out, Entourage.
My Sun and Stars.
Shazam, 2019. So The Rock has plenty of time to do what The Rock does, which is be awesome. Yeah. Justice League Part 2, again directed by Zack Snyder, 2019. Sorry. Cyborg starring Ray Fisher, 2020, and a Green Lantern reboot in 2020. So,
not much to talk about.
Not much to talk about. But there are 2.
Do you guys feel bad for the guy that's going to get cast as Shazam? Like, oh, you're the guy that's in the movie with The Rock.
I don't know.
I don't know, because I think by 2019, any number of things could happen, even with The Rock.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I mean, the rundown works with both Sean William Scott and The Rock. I think The Rock is good when he's playing off of somebody. He's great on his own, but, I loved his, I wouldn't say love, that's a strong word, but, I thought some of the best moments in G.I. Joe 2 were between Channing Tatum and The Rock.
I thought you were going to say Tooth Fairy.
Oh, God, I don't want to talk
That's
about this. That gets me right here, Carl, right here. All right, so, but here's one thing that jumps out at you when you look at this DC slate is, sure, there are characters that you can argue that, are they strong enough to really open their own movie? Well, I feel like when a talking raccoon and a talking tree are the biggest hit of the year, I feel like everybody now is like, yeah, they probably can.
Just make sure they're good.
Just make sure they're good, yeah.
But here's the thing about DC slate, and we still don't know. We have release dates for Marvel movies, but we don't know what their slate is. This is pretty ambitious of DC to just lay it all out there. Here are all their cards up through 2020.
Not all of their cards.
There's all their
cards. 2 cards that they're holding.
I love how comprehensive this announcement was, though. It had directors, it had people attached.
Yeah.
It was really comprehensive.
But they have 2 big cards that they've yet held back.
Yeah, that's the weird part.
Okay, so let's talk about
Superman.
that. You're switching up my talking points.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Never mind. Nope. Batman, Superman. In the press release, it says solo films in the works, but nothing listed there. So, curiosity. You say Batman, Superman solo films in the paragraph, but when your eye just goes to the list, they're nowhere to be found. Affleck and Cavill's respective heroes only showing up in Justice League Parts 1 and 2 and Batman v Superman. Is that wiggle room to be Batman and Superman solo films without those guys, like after 2020, or do you think we're going to see an Affleck Batman movie, solo Batman movie, pop up sometime between now and 2020?
I think they're reserving the right to do any number of things.
I think with Marvel having 2 movies a year, every year they don't have 2 movies on their slate, and they could. Right? Am I right?
No, actually, no. They have
they?
2 movies a year between 2016 and 2020.
Oh, they do.
Yeah,
But there could be
they are
more.
taking the Marvel playbook. They're jumping though right to basically their phase 2. They're not. They're kind of backwards engineering it, but it might work.
I kind of feel like what they're gonna do, and like you said, reserving the right to do something if, like, let's say Batman versus Superman is the biggest thing on Earth, and everybody loves Ben Affleck as Batman.
Then they're immediately.
Then I think we're gonna see a Ben Affleck Batman movie solo in some way. But the way they're setting this up with Justice League Part 1 and 2 right off the bat, and establishing these characters and so forth, I feel like they just really want everything else to pop because they know that Batman and Superman are good and they're fine.
Yeah.
They're gonna carry those big tentpoles.
You said big tentpole.
I did say that. So at the end, though, 2020, that's a long way along for Ben Affleck to still be starring in a Batman movie.
Yeah.
I think we can see Batman die.
Yeah, that's what I think too. I mean, I think they're reserving the right now though that is the slate that they've released, which is very ambitious, and I think it probably will be the ultimate slate. They can do any number of things. They can throw in a Batman or Superman movie if they need to.
Mm-hmm.
If other things aren't working, they can switch something out, pull one of the movies out, and replace it with a Batman and or Superman movie.
Mm-hmm.
They can wait. They can have Batman die in one of the Justice League movies if that feels good, and then have another Batman pop up.
Here's another theory. If they really want to get as cosmic as Marvel, what if there's some sort of Crisis on Infinite Earths reboot?
Yeah.
That would be
where
amazing.
you now suddenly things are changed and, hey, Batman played by a different guy.
Yeah.
But suddenly 10 years younger, but hey, James Bond does it all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like they are holding those back to give themselves the room to make a different decision if they need to after Batman vs. Superman comes out. And then the first couple of the next films come out as well. They're giving themselves the right to play those cards if they have to play those cards in the studio. That's what I think.
The problem with these solo movies, and it was the problem after Avengers too, like, how are they going to do this? Because any threat to the whole world is going to involve invariably these people that have gotten together before to save the whole world. So, if Superman shows up in his own movie, then it's going to be a Justice League movie if the threat's big enough. And you can't just make a movie about, like, Superman, like, washing his socks or whatever, because it's just not.
I don't
I mean,
know
I'd like to watch it. It's kind of what they did with Hawkeye, right?
Great Scott, my laundry is piling up.
But, so, like, I really think that those movies will be the marquee movies for the Batman and Superman characters, with everybody being kind of supporting them.
Yeah, I think they want to try and deepen their bullpen, again, with the sports metaphors in this guy. But, like, think about it. You want to show, you're introducing a Flash, a different Flash than the TV one that's already off to a good start.
A rollicking start.
And people like the actor playing him, and they seem to like
him.
the show. But different guy, Ezra Miller, very different kind of actor. Ray Fisher, an unknown. He's a stage actor. Cyborg, now carrying a movie. Jason Momoa. Honestly, unless you know Game of Thrones, you don't know Jason Momoa.
Everyone knows Game of Thrones, though.
Yeah, but I mean, he hasn't really. I mean, nobody went to see Conan, and he was already in Game of Thrones.
But Conan was terrible. I mean, straight up.
We have no idea. Like, Aquaman's a question mark. But it's like, the thing is, it is curious that in Suicide Squad now, David Ayer directing it, and there are rumors about who might be in that, and that there's some pretty big star names. I want to throw them out there.
I want to ask you guys a question about that. But
okay.
Go ahead.
Will Smith, Tom Hardy, yes, Bane, but different character. I would imagine maybe Captain Boomerang, because he's the Aussie on the team, and I'm sure he could probably do an Aussie accent. He has Mad Max after all. So wait, it was Will Smith, Tom Hardy, Ryan Gosling, and Margot Robbie.
It's like Ryan Gosling is now being tossed around for a couple things, including Doctor Strange. So he's clearly like shopping for that.
I think he's
got a baby now. He's like,
he's like, I need college money now.
He wants that big movie, I think.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. I mean, it will be interesting to see Ryan Gosling is something other than kind of like the sleepy-eyed.
Hey guys, I'm handsome and
hey, how dare each of you?
Wait, I just said sleepy-eyed. He's a darling.
With that honey-colored hair.
I think he's a really good actor. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think he is too. But I think it's interesting to see, like, Suicide Squad being the second one out of the gate.
Which one of those films are you most looking forward to? Just given the information that we have about them, just the minimal information.
I mean, for me,
have.
Batman, Superman, I'm already on board. But I feel like Batman, Superman almost doesn't count in this list because we've been hearing about this thing
we already
for years.
know. So let's take that out of the equation.
Suicide Squad and Shazam.
I'm going to go Suicide Squad because of all of the reasons. Like David Ayer directing it, I feel like it's going to be one of the more interesting superhero. It may work, it may not, but I feel like it's going to be I mean, it's villains, which is already kind of a new twist.
It's Dirty Dozen with supervillains.
Yeah. Dirty Dozen with supervillains. David Ayer, like all of the elements combined, and then some of the actors that they're talking about to board it. That's the one that right now has me most sort of amped up.
I am quite excited that they're actually making a Wonder Woman movie, but I will believe it when I see it. You know, when
Do
I
you
see
think that it will not happen?
I'm just saying, like, anything could happen to the slate. That's another thing. Like, you announce something, and then, you know, what if like Wonder Woman's character doesn't really test well in Batman versus Superman?
True.
Then you don't do that whole movie.
Yeah.
Or they just recast it.
Or they recast it. Could be anything. I'm actually really excited about Aquaman. I think if you do it right, it could be really
That's
cool.
going to be expensive.
It's going to be really
all that
expensive.
water effects, everything. Water and fire are still the toughest digital effects to pull off. So
water would say easier, slightly easier.
I think that they're going after big stars for Suicide Squad because they can afford to spend the money on the actors in that movie, because I think it's going to be less about the effects in that movie.
And also probably less sequel
Slightly
chances.
less.
I mean, if you're calling it Dirty Dozen and it's Suicide Squad, somebody's going to have to die.
Yeah, people.
I know it doesn't really happen often in the comics, but in a movie, like, somebody got to buy it.
Somebody named Captain Boomerang could easily die, and it wouldn't hurt my feelings.
Actually, they're going by the name Harkness, according to Latino Review.
It has to be, right? Like, you can't... Like, DC has, like, 1,000 people named Captain, you know... Shillelagh or whatever, you know, like.
Hey, Captain Shillelagh was the patron saint of my mother's homeland. Okay.
Jim, again, we're taking Batman vs Superman out.
Yeah.
You need to make your choice.
Well, I said it was either Suicide Squad or Shazam.
No, you have to pick.
Who are you, Jigsaw? Make your choice, live or die.
I love that. I love that being Jigsaw. I guess it is a negative.
All right, Suicide Squad, just because it's different. But yeah, so final verdict then: Batman, Superman solo movies. Are you okay if we don't get them until the next decade?
Like I said, I think it's gonna be tough for them to do them once you introduce all these other characters in this intertwined way. So I think how they're viewing it, and this is just me throwing stuff out there, I think Justice League movies are going to be very, very focused on those two characters with everybody else at the periphery. And so
it's going to be like the X-Men movies where it's basically the Wolverine and now Mystique show, when it used to be the Wolverine and Storm show.
And I think that Batman is going to either die or pass the cowl. It could be one or the other. It could just be
both.
like, both.
He dies passing the cowl, just has a heart or trips.
But
after all his training, that's how he goes out.
I think there will be a transference of the Batman identity, or we might see Nightwing at that point.
That's what I think probably will happen. I do think that
And it's Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
I love how this is like the which characters are they gonna ice podcast.
Who getting whacked?
Who getting whacked? Batman whacked. I think probably eventually that's what will happen, and then that opens up a whole other door, which may be another reason that they're holding things back.
Awesome. Then Man-Bat can make it.
Man-Bat.
All right. Well, I want Man-Bat in a movie at some point. So, but that's a different thing entirely.